The massive chamber buzzed with nervous energy as beings from across the galaxy gathered around a floating display. 12 different species sat at curved tables, their forms ranging from towering crystal beings to small fuzzy creatures with multiple eyes. At the center of their attention hung a hologram showing something that had puzzled them all for 3 long years. The object in the hologram was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. It looked like a giant crystal ball, the size of a small moon, but it pulsed with strange lights that hurt to look at directly. Ancient symbols covered its surface, glowing and fading in patterns that seemed almost alive. Commander Hyuk sat with the human delegation, his weathered face showing no emotion as he watched the alien experts argue. Next to him, Engineer Day sketched something in a worn notebook, occasionally glancing up at the hologram with curious eyes. On his other side, xenorchaeologist Nari took careful notes about everything she heard. Her pen moving quickly across the paper, the Valkyrie scientist named Threnok stood up, his 6 arms gesturing wildly as he spoke. His voice carried a tone of deep frustration that translated clearly through the universal communicator. "Fellow beings of the Council," Threnok began, his crystalline form shimmering with agitation, "we have reached a critical point. This device, this relic of the predecessor civilization, holds the key to saving our galaxy from the resource crisis that threatens us all." Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Every being present knew the stakes. Planets were dying. Resources were running out. Entire species faced extinction as their homeworlds became uninhabitable. Threnok continued, his voice growing more urgent. "Our analysis confirms what we suspected. This is a terraforming engine of unimaginable power. It can restore dead worlds to life, turn barren rocks into gardens, and heal the damage we have done to our environments." But he paused, and the chamber fell silent. "But we cannot make it work. Every attempt has failed. Some have failed catastrophically." Another alien stood up. This one was tall and thin, with skin that looked like flowing water. Quillen, the Zephyrian mathematician, spoke with a voice like wind through leaves. Calculations are beyond our understanding," Quillen said, projecting complex equations into the air above the table. "We have tried every approach known to galactic science. The Crystalline Consortium attempted quantum manipulation. The Void Dwellers used reality-bending mathematics. Even the Nexus Collective, with their combined processing power of 1,000,000 synthetic minds, could not crack this puzzle." Day looked up from his notebook, studying the floating equations with interest. Unlike the other beings in the room, he did not look impressed or intimidated. Instead, he looked like someone trying to solve a crossword puzzle. "What exactly happens when you try to activate it?" Hyuk asked, speaking for the first time since the meeting began. Threnok's form flickered with what might have been embarrassment. "The device begins to respond. We can see energy building within its core, but then something goes wrong. The energy becomes unstable, chaotic. In our last attempt, the feedback pulse nearly destroyed our research station." "How many attempts have there been?" Nari asked, her pen poised over her notebook. 17 major attempts, Quillen replied. Each one using different theoretical approaches, each one ending in failure. A new voice entered the conversation. It belonged to Zenther, a being made of what looked like living metal. "The device is clearly designed to be operated by beings far more advanced than any of us. Perhaps we should accept that some knowledge is beyond our reach." This comment caused an uproar. Beings throughout the chamber began talking at once, their voices mixing into a cacophony of different languages and communication methods. Some argued for continued attempts, others for abandoning the project entirely. Hyuk raised his hand, and surprisingly, the chamber quieted. There was something about humans that commanded respect, even from beings who were individually far more powerful. "You said the device responds initially," Hyuk said to Threnok. "What does that look like?" Threnok activated a new hologram, showing recorded footage of their last attempt. The crystal sphere began to glow, energy patterns flowing across its surface like liquid light. Then suddenly the patterns became erratic. pulsing wildly before the whole system shut down with a surge of chaotic energy. Day watched the recording with intense focus. As the energy patterns shifted from smooth to chaotic, he made a note in his book and underlined it twice. Interesting, he murmured, so quietly that only Hyuk and Nari could hear him. The chamber continued to buzz with frustrated discussion. Some aliens proposed building a new research facility with better shielding. Others suggested attempting to contact other predecessor sites for clues. A few even wondered if they should try to find living predecessors, though none had been seen. For thousands of years, through it all, the human delegation remained quiet, observing and taking notes. They were the newest members of the galactic community, having only made first contact 50 years ago. Most of the other species still thought of them as primitive, though their rapid technological advancement had earned them a place at this table. Finally, the chairman of the council, an ancient being whose species name was unpronounceable to human tongues, called for order. "We face a decision," the chairman announced. "Continue our attempts and risk another catastrophic failure, or abandon this project and seal the device away permanently." "There is another option," Threnok said reluctantly. "We could allow one more attempt, one final try before we give up." "Who would make this attempt?" Zenther asked. "We have exhausted our best minds and most advanced technologies." The chamber fell silent as beings looked at each other. No one wanted to volunteer for what seemed certain to be another failure. Then Hyuk spoke up. "We would like to try." The silence that followed was so complete that the hum of the chamber's life support system seemed loud. Then slowly a sound began to build. It was laughter, but not the kind that showed amusement. It was the kind that showed disbelief. "With respect, Commander Hyuk," Threnok said, his voice carefully neutral, "your species has been in space for less than a century. This device has puzzled civilizations that have existed for millions of years." "That may be exactly why we should try," Nari said, closing her notebook. "Sometimes a fresh perspective can see things that experts miss." Quillen's watery form rippled with what might have been doubt. "What could you possibly bring to this problem that we have not already tried?" Day looked up from his sketches, his eyes bright with interest. "Maybe the problem is not that we are not smart enough," he said. "Maybe the problem is that we are trying to be too smart." The aliens in the chamber exchanged glances. Some looked confused, others looked offended. A few looked curious. The chairman raised one appendage for silence. "The human delegation requests permission to attempt activation of the predecessor device. All in favor?" The vote was close, but it passed. Many beings voted yes, not because they believed humans could succeed, but because they wanted to be thorough. Before abandoning the project. As the meeting ended and beings began to file out of the chamber, Hyuk gathered his team. "Well," he said quietly, "we have our chance. Any ideas?" Day held up his notebook, showing sketches of the energy patterns they had observed. "I think I know what the problem might be," he said. "But if I am right, the solution is going to surprise everyone." The human research vessel drifted silently through space, its hull reflecting the light of distant stars. Inside, the team gathered in the main conference room, surrounded by holographic displays showing every piece of data they could find about the mysterious artifact. Nari spread her research across the large table, her eyes bright with excitement. "I have been studying the predecessor sites for years," she said, pointing to images of ancient ruins. "Everyone thinks they were some kind of super-advanced beings who transcended physical existence. But I think they were much more like us then." "Anyone realizes?" Hyuk leaned forward, interested. "What do you mean?" "Look at their other technology," Nari continued, activating a series of holograms. "Every device we have found from their civilization follows the same pattern. They are advanced, yes, but they are also practical. Simple to operate once you understand the basic principles." Day nodded, looking up from his own pile of technical specifications. "I noticed something similar in the energy readings. All the alien experts are talking about 11-dimensional physics and consciousness-based activation systems. But if you ignore all that complex theory and just look at the raw data, something else emerges." He activated his own display, showing the energy patterns from the failed activation attempts. Watch this carefully. See how the energy flows at the beginning of each attempt. The hologram showed smooth, rhythmic pulses of light flowing through the artifact's structure. The pattern was almost hypnotic, like watching a heartbeat or ocean waves. "It looks alive," Nari observed. "Exactly," Day said, his voice growing more excited. "But then watch what happens when the system starts to fail." The smooth pattern suddenly became erratic, jumping and stuttering like a damaged recording. The energy seemed to fight against itself, creating chaotic interference patterns. "It reminds me of something," Day continued, flipping through his notebook to find a particular page. "When I was young, I worked in my father's machine shop. We had this old hydraulic press that would do exactly this when one of the pressure lines got blocked." Hyuk raised an eyebrow. "You think the artifact has a mechanical problem?" "Not mechanical exactly," Day said, "but something similar. Look at these readings again. The energy wants to flow in a specific pattern, but something is stopping it. Something is creating resistance where there should not be any." Before anyone could respond, the conference room door opened and Captain Kyung entered, her face serious. "I just received word from the Galactic Council," she announced. "They have given us official permission to make one attempt. We have access to the research station and the artifact for exactly 72 hours. What happens if we fail?" Nari asked. Kyung's expression grew even more serious. "The device will be sealed away permanently. The Council cannot risk another catastrophic failure. The last explosion nearly killed everyone on the research station." Yuk stood up, pacing to the large window that showed the stars outside. "So, we get one chance. If we are wrong, that is it. No second tries? No appeals?" "The pressure might actually help us," Day said, surprising everyone. "If we only have one shot, we cannot spend time on complicated theories. We have to focus on what we can actually fix." Nari gathered her research materials, her mind already working on the problem. "I need to translate more of the predecessor texts. Everyone has been assuming the symbols around the device are decorative, but what if they are instructions?" "Good idea," Hyuk agreed. "What else do we need?" Day was already making a list in his notebook. "I want to bring basic diagnostic equipment. Not the fancy quantum scanners the aliens have been using, but simple tools that can measure energy flow, pressure, and structural integrity." "That seems almost primitive compared to what the other teams have tried," Kyung observed. "Maybe that is exactly what we need," Day replied. "Sometimes the simplest explanation is the right one." Over the next several hours, the team prepared for their mission. Hyuk coordinated with the research station, ensuring they would have full access to the artifact and all previous experimental data. Nari worked tirelessly on translations, using human linguistic analysis techniques that approach the predecessor language from a completely different angle than alien methods. Day assembled his toolkit, carefully selecting instruments that could give him basic information about how energy moved through the artifact's structure. His choices puzzled the other team members. Instead of advanced sensors, he packed items that looked like they belonged in a maintenance workshop. "Are you sure about this equipment?" Kyung asked, watching him pack what appeared to be a simple flashlight. "The most advanced civilizations in the galaxy have tried their most sophisticated tools," Day explained. "None of them worked. Maybe it is time to try something different." As their ship approached the research station, they could see the artifact through the main viewing port. Even from a distance, it was impressive. The crystal sphere hung in space like a small moon, its surface covered in patterns that seemed to shift and change as they watched. "It is beautiful," Nari whispered. "It is also dangerous," Hyuk reminded them. "Remember, this thing nearly destroyed a space station. We need to be careful." Day studied the artifact through the viewing port, his trained eye looking for details the others might miss. "I want to see the base of the structure," he said. "The part that connects to the station's power systems." "Why?" Kyung asked. "Because that is where problems usually start," Day replied. "In my experience, when a complex system fails, the problem is usually in the simplest part, the part everyone takes for granted." As they docked with the research station, they were met by Thranox and several other alien scientists. The Valkyrie's crystalline form flickered with what seemed like nervous energy. "Welcome to Research Station Alpha," Thranox said through the universal translator. "I must admit, I am curious to see what approach you will take." "We appreciate the opportunity," Hyuk replied diplomatically. "We understand the risks involved." "The artifact is contained in the main laboratory," Thranox continued, leading them through the station's corridors. "We have prepared our most advanced monitoring equipment to observe your attempt." Day listened to this with growing amusement. "Actually," he said, "I was hoping to start with something much simpler." Thranox's form flickered with confusion. "Simpler? I want to take a look at the device with my own eyes first," Day explained. "Before we try anything complex, I want to understand what we are actually dealing with." The alien scientists exchanged glances. This was not what they expected from the species that had requested this final attempt. As they entered the main laboratory, the artifact dominated the space. It was even more impressive up close, pulsing gently with internal light. Dozens of sophisticated monitoring devices surrounded it, their displays showing complex readouts that meant nothing to the human team, but Day ignored all of that. Instead, he walked slowly around the base of the artifact, studying the connections and support structures with the focused attention of someone looking for a specific problem. "Interesting," he murmured, crouching down to examine something near the base. "Very interesting indeed." The research station's main laboratory buzzed with activity as alien scientists prepared their most advanced equipment. Massive quantum field generators hummed to life, their crystalline cores glowing with barely contained energy. Consciousness amplification arrays extended from the ceiling like the arms of some mechanical spider, ready to focus mental energy on the artifact. In the middle of all this sophisticated technology, Day knelt on the floor with a simple flashlight and a magnifying glass, examining the base of the predecessor device like a mechanic looking under the hood of a broken car. "This is your approach?" Thranox asked, his 6 arms gesturing at the incredible array of equipment his team had assembled. "We have quantum resonance amplifiers, dimensional phase shifters, and reality manipulation matrices. You have a flashlight." Day looked up from his examination, his face completely serious. "Sometimes the best tool for the job is the simplest one," he said. "All this advanced equipment is trying to solve a problem that might not exist." "What do you mean?" Quillen asked, his watery form rippling with curiosity. "Everyone assumes this device is broken because it does not work," Day explained, running his hand along one of the artifact's base connections. "But what if it is not broken at all? What if it just needs maintenance?" The alien scientists exchanged glances that clearly said they thought the humans had lost their minds. Zenthar's metallic form chimed with what sounded like suppressed laughter. "Maintenance?" Zenthar repeated. "This device was built by a civilization that vanished millions of years ago. It operates on principles we barely understand." "And you think it needs maintenance?" "Every machine needs maintenance," Day replied matter-of-factly. "The more complex the machine, the more things can go wrong with it." While the aliens debated this seemingly primitive approach, Nari worked at a portable computer running translations of the symbols covering the artifact's surface. Her linguistic analysis software, designed for ancient human languages, was finding patterns that the more advanced alien translation systems had missed. "Hyuk," she called out, excitement clear in her voice. "You need to see this." Hyuk left the increasingly heated discussion between Day and the alien scientist to see what Nari had discovered. "These symbols are not decorative," Nari said, pointing to her translated text. "They are instructions, maintenance instructions." She highlighted sections of her translation, reading them aloud. "Warning: energy flow channels require periodic cleaning. Crystalline matrix elements may accumulate debris over extended periods of non-use. Failure to maintain proper energy flow will result in system instability." The laboratory fell silent as the implications of this discovery sank in. All the advanced theories about consciousness, interfaces, and dimensional harmonics might be completely wrong. The device might simply be dirty. That is impossible, Threnok said, but his voice lacked conviction. A civilization advanced enough to build this would not create technology that required such basic maintenance. Why not? Day asked, standing up and dusting off his knees. Every piece of technology I have ever worked with needs regular maintenance. The more advanced it is, the more precise that maintenance needs to be. He pointed to the various connections at the base of the artifact. Look at these energy conduits. They have been sitting here for who knows how long, accumulating dust, debris, maybe even crystalline growth. If these passages are blocked, the energy cannot flow properly. As if to prove his point, Day shined his flashlight into one of the larger conduits. The beam revealed exactly what he had predicted. The passage was nearly blocked by accumulated material that looked like a combination of cosmic dust and strange crystalline formations. "By the void," Quillen whispered, his form shimmering with amazement. He is right. The conduits are blocked. Suddenly, the advanced equipment surrounding the artifact seemed less impressive. All the quantum field generators and consciousness amplifiers in the galaxy would not help if the basic energy distribution system was clogged with debris. This explains the energy patterns we observed, Day continued, pulling out his notebook to show his sketches. The system starts up normally because the main power source is functional. But as soon as it tries to distribute energy through the blocked conduits, the flow becomes unstable. The energy has nowhere to go, so it creates feedback loops that eventually shut down the entire system. Nari looked up from her translations, her eyes bright with understanding. The predecessors built this to last for millions of years, but they also built it to be maintained. These instructions detail a complete maintenance cycle that should be performed every few thousand years. How long has it been since the last maintenance? Yuck asked. Based on the archaeological evidence, Nari replied, probably about 50,000 years, maybe more. The alien scientists stared at the artifact with new understanding. This was not a mystical device that required transcendent consciousness to operate. It was a sophisticated machine that had been neglected for millennia. Even if you are correct, Zenther said, how do you propose to clear these conduits? The energy that flows through them is unlike anything we understand. Any attempt to physically clean them could destroy the entire device. Day was already examining the blocked conduit more closely, using a small mirror to reflect his flashlight beam deeper into the passage. The blockage is not uniform, he observed. Some areas are completely blocked, but others just have partial obstructions. He moved to another conduit, then another, building up a mental map of the artifact's energy distribution system. Each passage told the same story. Thousands of years of accumulated debris had slowly strangled the device's ability to function. I think I can clear most of these, Day announced. But there is one major problem. He led the group to a large junction where several energy conduits came together. This was clearly a critical part of the system, but the connection was completely severed. Crystalline growth had not just blocked the passage, it had actually broken one of the main energy channels. This is the real problem, Day said, examining the break with his magnifying glass. Everything else is just cleaning, but this needs to be repaired. Can it be repaired? Hyuk asked. Day studied the break for several minutes, occasionally making notes in his book. The gap was about 3 centimeters wide, with irregular crystalline surfaces on both sides. The material was unlike anything found on Earth, but the engineering problem was familiar. Maybe, he said finally, but not with anything fancy. This needs a solution that can handle energy fluctuations while maintaining flexibility. Something that can adapt to the irregular surfaces without creating stress points. What do you have in mind? Nari asked. Day reached into his toolkit and pulled out something that made the alien scientists gasp in disbelief. It was a roll of gray tape, worn and practical looking, with human writing on the side. Duct tape? Hyuk asked, not sure whether to laugh or be concerned. Not ordinary duct tape, Day explained. This is a specialized version designed for spacecraft maintenance. It can handle dimensional energy fluctuations and maintain conductivity across different types of materials. The alien stared at the roll of tape as if it were a dangerous weapon. After years of attempting to solve this problem with the most advanced technology in the galaxy, the humans proposed to fix it with tape. "You cannot be serious," Threnok said. "I am completely serious," they replied. "Sometimes the best solution is the simplest one." The laboratory fell into stunned silence as Day unrolled a length of the gray tape, examining it against the broken energy junction. The alien scientists watched with expressions ranging from horror to fascination as he measured the gap and made calculations in his notebook. "The molecular structure of this tape is designed to adapt to whatever it touches," Day explained, seemingly unaware of the chaos he was causing among the galaxy's finest minds. "It can conduct energy, maintain flexibility under stress, and form molecular bonds with almost any material." Threnox's crystalline form flickered rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation. "You propose to repair a device built by the most advanced civilization in galactic history with adhesive tape?" "I propose to fix a broken connection with the right tool for the job," Day replied calmly. "The fact that it is tape is less important than the fact that it will work." Quillen's watery form rippled with what might have been distress. "We have developed quantum-coherent replacement parts using the most advanced material science in the galaxy. Surely those would be more appropriate than ... tape." Day examined one of the precision-crafted replacement parts that the aliens had spent months creating. It was beautiful, a perfect geometric crystal that gleamed with inner light. It was also completely useless for the actual problem. "This is very impressive," Day admitted, "but it will not work. Look at the break again. The surfaces are irregular, and they need to move slightly as energy flows through them. Your replacement part is rigid. It would crack under the stress." He pointed to the damaged junction, tracing the irregular crystalline edges with his finger. "The original connection was designed to be flexible. It needed to expand and contract as different types of energy flowed through it. That is why it lasted for millions of years before the crystalline growth finally broke it." Nari looked up from her translation work. "He is right. The maintenance instructions specifically mention that connections in this section need to maintain flexibility. They warn against using rigid replacement parts." "Even if your analysis is correct," Zenther chimed, "how can you be certain that this tape will not interfere with the energy patterns? One mistake could destroy the entire device." Day pulled out a small testing device from his toolkit. "That is why we test it first." He carefully cut a small piece of tape and placed it between two energy sensors. Then he activated a low-power energy field, the same type that flowed through the artifact systems. The sensors showed that the energy passed through the tape without distortion. More importantly, the tape adapted to the energy pattern, actually improving the conduction efficiency. "The tape is designed for this," Day explained. "Human spacecraft deal with all kinds of exotic energy fields. We needed materials that could handle anything we might encounter." The alien scientists gathered around the testing device, their instruments confirming what the simple human sensors had shown. The tape was not just compatible with the artifact's energy systems, it was perfectly suited for them. "This is incredible," Quillen admitted. "How did your species develop such materials?" "Necessity," Hyuk answered. "When you are exploring unknown space with limited resources, you need equipment that can handle anything and be repaired with whatever you have available." Day began preparing for the actual repair, cleaning the broken surfaces and carefully measuring the exact placement for the tape. His movements were precise and confident, like a surgeon preparing for a delicate operation. "Are you certain about this?" Threnok asked one final time. "If this fails, we may never get another chance." "I am certain," Day replied. "This is not guesswork, it is engineering." Nari monitored her archaeological sensors, ready to alert the team if the repair process threatened to damage the artifact. Retract power flow through the entire system. Watching for any signs that their intervention was causing problems elsewhere, Hyuk coordinated the activation sequence, working with the alien technicians to ensure that they could shut down the system immediately if something went wrong. Beginning repair procedure, Day announced. He carefully placed the first piece of tape across the broken junction, pressing it firmly against the irregular crystalline surfaces. The tape seemed to mold itself to the contours of the break, forming a perfect seal. As he worked, the tape began to glow softly, resonating with the ambient energy in the artifact. This was exactly what it was designed to do, but seeing it happen in real time was still remarkable. Energy flow is stabilizing in Sector 7, Ray reported from her monitoring station. Day continued his work, adding more tape and adjusting the connection until the energy sensors showed optimal flow through the repaired junction. The process took nearly an hour, with each piece of tape carefully placed and tested. Repair complete, Day announced finally. Stepping back to examine his work, the junction looked almost exactly as it had before, except for the thin line of gray tape that bridged the gap in the crystalline structure. It was not beautiful like the alien replacement parts, but it was functional. Energy flow through the main junction is now at 97% of optimal, Ray reported. All systems show green. The moment of truth, Hyuk said. Are we ready to attempt activation? The alien scientists took their positions at their monitoring stations while the human team gathered around their simple diagnostic equipment. Everyone in the laboratory held their breath as Hyuk gave the activation command. Initializing startup sequence, the station's computer announced. The artifact began to glow, energy patterns flowing across its surface in the familiar rhythmic pulse they had seen so many times before. But this time, something was different. Energy. Distribution is stable, Ray called out, her voice rising with excitement. Flow patterns are maintaining coherence. The pulsing lights on the artifact's surface grew brighter and more complex, but they remained steady and controlled. There were no chaotic fluctuations, no signs of the instability that had doomed every previous attempt. Power levels are increasing, Fernox reported from his station, his voice filled with amazement. The system is drawing energy from the stations. Reactors, but the load is stable. The artifact began to emit a sound, a deep harmonic resonance that seemed to fill the entire laboratory. It was not the harsh, discordant noise of a malfunctioning machine, but something that sounded almost musical. It is working, Quillen whispered, his watery form shimmering with wonder. After 3 years of failure, it is actually working. Holographic displays throughout the laboratory came to life, showing readouts and data streams that had been dark for millennia. The artifact was not just functioning. It was revealing its true purpose to anyone who could understand its language. Look at this, Nari called out, pointing to her translation computer. The device is displaying its complete operational manual. Instructions for terraforming, atmospheric processing, ecological restoration. Everything we need to understand how it works. The alien scientists stared at their instruments in disbelief. The device that had resisted their most advanced attempts was now operating perfectly, held together in part by a strip of human duct tape. How is this possible? Zenther asked, his metallic form chiming with confusion. We tried everything. Every theoretical approach, every advanced technique known to galactic science. Day looked up from his notebook, where he was recording the successful energy readings. Sometimes the problem is not that you are not smart enough, he said with a slight smile. Sometimes the problem is that you are trying too hard to be smart. The artifact continued to hum with harmonic energy, its systems fully operational for the first time in 50,000 years. And at its heart, a simple strip of gray tape bridged the gap between ancient technology and practical human engineering. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. Within hours of the successful activation, every major news network was broadcasting the same incredible story. Humans had solved the impossible problem that had stumped the galaxies. Greatest minds for 3 years, the artifact, now fully operational, projected detailed holographic instructions into the space around it. The information was staggering. This was not just a terraforming device. It was a complete planetary restoration system capable of healing worlds that had been damaged by war, pollution, or natural disaster. Commander Hyuk found himself at the center of a media storm unlike anything he had ever experienced. Representatives from dozens of species requested interviews, each one wanting to understand how humans had succeeded where others had failed. The key was not trying to be clever, Hyuk explained to a gathering of galactic reporters. We approached this as a practical problem rather than a theoretical challenge. Sometimes the simplest explanation is the correct one. The questions came rapidly from beings with translation devices, recording equipment and sensory organs that captured information in ways humans could barely understand. Commander, how does it feel to know that human engineering has potentially saved the galaxy? What message does this success send about humanity's place in the galactic community? Do you believe this will change how other species view human technology? Hyuk answered each question thoughtfully, but he kept returning to the same basic theme. This was not about human superiority, but about the value of practical thinking and simple solutions. Meanwhile, Day had become something of a celebrity, though he seemed genuinely puzzled by all the attention. He sat in the station's conference room, surrounded by alien scientists who wanted to understand his methods. I do not understand why this is so surprising, he said, looking around at the eager faces. It was just a maintenance problem. The device needed to be cleaned and repaired. Any competent engineer could have done the same thing. But we're competent engineers, Fernox protested. Some of us have been studying advanced technology for centuries. Why did we not see what you saw? Day thought about this for a moment, then pulled out his worn notebook. Maybe because you were looking for the wrong kind of problem. You were all trying to solve a mystery of advanced physics. I was just trying to fix a broken machine. But how did you know it was broken in such a simple way? Quillen asked. Experience, Day replied. I have been fixing machines my whole life. When something stops working, 90% of the time it is because of a basic problem. Something is loose, something is blocked, something is worn out. You check the simple things first before you start looking for complex explanations. The alien scientists exchanged glances. This approach was so different from their usual methods that it was almost revolutionary. So you ignored all the theoretical analysis and just looked at the physical device? Zenther asked. I looked at both. Day corrected, but I trusted what I could see and touch more than what the computers told me. Computers can be wrong about what they think is happening. Your own eyes rarely lie to you. Nari's archaeological work had revealed even more surprising information about the predecessors. Her analysis of the newly activated instructional holograms showed that the ancient civilization had been remarkably similar to humans in their approach to technology. They were builders, she explained to a gathering of xenorchaeologists who had traveled from across the galaxy to study her findings. They created technology that was meant to last and be maintained. Every device we have found includes detailed maintenance instructions and repair procedures. This contradicts everything we thought we knew about them, admitted Dr. Vex, a renowned Altarian archaeologist. We assumed they were beings of pure energy who had transcended physical limitations. I think that assumption led us astray, Nari replied. We were looking for mystical activation procedures and consciousness interfaces because we thought that was what such advanced beings would create. But maybe being advanced means building things that work reliably and can be fixed when they break. The Galactic Council convened an emergency session to discuss the implications of the human success. The chamber that had been filled with frustrated experts just days before now buzzed with excitement and possibility. The activation of the predecessor device changes everything, announced the council chairman. We now have access to technology that can restore damaged worlds, process toxic atmospheres, and even reverse the effects of ecological collapse. More importantly, added Councillor Vrath of the Centauri Union, we have learned that human problem-solving methods may be exactly what we need to unlock other predecessor technologies. The formal recognition came in the form of an invitation for humanity to join the Galactic Council as full members rather than observers. It was an honor that typically took species hundreds of years to achieve. Your species has proven that fresh perspectives and practical thinking are invaluable, the chairman told Hyuk during the ceremony. We would be honored to have you as equal partners in the governance of our galaxy. But perhaps the most significant change was less formal. Alien engineering teams throughout the galaxy quietly began adding human-style maintenance equipment to their toolkits. Rolls of duct tape, simple diagnostic tools, and basic repair manuals started appearing alongside. The most advanced technology in known space. The artifact itself became a symbol of the new cooperation between species. Research teams from multiple civilizations worked together to understand its capabilities and plan its use. The first target was a world in the Andromeda sector that had been poisoned by industrial pollution centuries ago. As Hyuk stood in the observation deck of the research station, watching alien and human technicians work side by side, he reflected on how much had changed in just a few days. Remarkable, is it not? Threnok said, joining him at the viewing port. A strip of tape changed the fate of the galaxy. It was not really about the tape, Hyuk replied. It was about being willing to try a different approach. Sometimes the best solution is the one that no one expects. The Valkyrie scientist's crystalline form flickered with what Hyuk had learned was amusement. I've been studying advanced physics for 300 years. In all that time, I never learned the most important lesson. Check if it is plugged in before you assume it is broken. Day appeared in the doorway, still carrying his notebook and looking slightly overwhelmed by all the attention he had been receiving. How are you handling your newfound fame? Hyuk asked. It is strange, Day admitted. I fixed one machine and suddenly everyone wants to know the secret of human engineering. But there is no secret. We just try to solve problems in the most practical way possible. Maybe that is the secret, Threnok suggested. In a galaxy full of species trying to transcend physical limitations, humans remain grounded in practical solutions. Nari joined them, carrying a datapad filled with her latest translations. I have been analyzing the predecessor maintenance manuals, she announced. There are references to dozens of other devices scattered throughout the galaxy. Many of them probably just need basic maintenance to become operational again. Looks like we have job security, Day said with a grin. As the research station continued its work, the artifact hummed quietly in the background. Its systems maintained by a combination of ancient technology and human duct tape. It was a perfect symbol of the new era of galactic cooperation, where practical solutions mattered more than theoretical elegance. The galaxy had learned an important lesson. Sometimes the most advanced solution is also the simplest one. And sometimes the best tool for fixing the impossible is something designed to fix the everyday. In the weeks that followed, human engineering teams were dispatched to predecessor sites throughout the galaxy. Armed with basic tools, maintenance manuals, and plenty of duct tape, they began the systematic restoration of technologies that had been dormant for millennia. The age of human-alien cooperation had begun. Built on a foundation of practical problem-solving and the universal truth that every machine, no matter how advanced, occasionally needs a little maintenance, and somewhere in the vast archives of galactic history, the story of the day humans fixed the impossible with duct tape became legend, inspiring generations of engineers to remember that sometimes the best solution is the simplest one.